Hi, I'm Greg Soule. This is Why Am I, a podcast where I have conversations with interesting people and try and trace a path to where they find themselves today. My guest this go around is Mykell Barlow, who is about as multifaceted as they come. He talks about singing in Georgian nightclubs at 13, to his time in Thailand, and over to being a pastor, and dropping everything and moving to LA, and last as RuPaul Charles's executive assistant. You've probably heard that name once or twice. And also, did I mention that he's also a writer, director, producer, and actor? Yeah, no kidding. If nothing else, you won't be left unchanged by this conversation. I hope you enjoy this chat with Mykell. Mykell Barlow, thank you for joining me on the Why Am I podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is wonderful.
Yeah. Well, we did the intro fantasy restaurant stuff. So yeah, you were such a blast, and you had some great anecdotes about food. But what I'm really curious about is who you are and how you ended up becoming such an interesting person. Like, I've already been stalking you for, I don't know, a week or two now. And I feel like we go way back, man. I know everything about you now. I don't know that much about you. But I usually like to start these things by saying, you and I are standing in line at the grocery store, right? You've got your goat cheese, your walnuts you're going to roast later. You got your arugula. You're making your salad. You've already got, all the other ingredients at home. You're good to go there. And there's somebody at the counter in front of us, and they're paying in pennies, so they're counting. It's going to be a while. So you and I strike up a conversation, and I tell you about how I am. What am I today? I'm a photographer, so we talk about that for a second. Now it's your turn to reciprocate, man. So who are you?
I'm a a multi-hatted person, I guess. I do a lot of different things. I'm a executive assistant. I am a writer and a producer in Los Angeles for a myriad of different creative endeavors.
All right, I know you're already leaving off things. Like, already. We just met. We're standing here at the grocery store, and you're already leaving off stuff. So I know you're also a very talented singer. I've heard you sing. It is on the internet. It exists.
Yes, it is. I am a singer-songwriter as well. I do everything so when you are in the creative space in the entertainment industry, it just helps, I think, to do everything. And so I kind of do a lot of singer-songwriting, which like you said, is all over the internet. I've been doing that for 15 years. And that's kind of where I found my entry into the entertainment world. And from there, kind of got into acting and screenwriting because my music kept giving me opportunities to be in front of the camera for whatever reason. So I just kind of flowed with that and that led me into being more of a behind the scenes producer for content and lots of other creative things. And also led me to kind of from the business aspect of entertainment, being an executive assistant to RuPaul Charles.
Oh, I'm not sure anybody's familiar with who that is, so you might have. You just I love how you just kind of keep slipping these things in like they're nothing. It's pretty cool, man.
No, yeah, I think that being able to kind of go with the flow of life, I've been fortunate and blessed to do a lot of really cool things and meet a lot of really cool people and do what I love to do. So I'm happy with where I am in life.
So just a second ago, you were talking about how I think you phrase it like behind the scenes versus in front. So where do you think you feel more comfortable, like being on the stage and performing or acting in front of a camera, or do you think you feel more comfortable Like doing the back stuff where you're doing producing or writing?
You know, I think that I'm in a phase in my life where I love the production of things. Um, that's not to say that I'll ever give up my first love, which is performing. Like I love the rush of being on stage. I love the everything that goes along with preparing to perform or to act in a scene or whatever. But I'm in a phase in my life where I just really am enjoying putting things together, and also learning how to put things together in terms of production, and I just love writing. Writing is very cathartic for me. I can do it anywhere. No one can ever really take that away from me, which is why it's always been such a huge part of my life, even when I was just writing poems and songs to now writing screenplays and things like that. It's just very important to me. Words are very important to me.
Do you think, so I'm trying to, I always try and like look through your eyeballs. Do you think the production and all of that side, you know, like the phase you find yourself in now, do you think that feeds you in a different way than the performance piece did?
I absolutely think that it feeds me in a different way. I think when I'm performing, there is an ego stroke there, and I enjoy making people feel whatever emotion that I want them to feel in performance. But there's just something about taking something that was just in my brain and making it reality. Like I don't want to sound like I have some God complex or something.
No.
But I think giving birth to something is so much more rewarding than the momentary ego stroke you get when you perform.
Yeah.
For me, obviously that changes for, you know, the person, but for me, it's just so much more rewarding and so much deeper for me to kind of give birth to something and foster it and you know, make it be what it's supposed to be and live out its full potential. That's just so much more rewarding for me.
It's got to be so much more difficult too, right? Like the actual bringing all of that to life.
It's definitely more difficult. There's a lot more parts to it and a lot more people involved and a lot more, you know, ways that it could go wrong. But again, it's just so worth it to me to, again, be able to take something from nothing to something that does entertain or something that does inform or something that does make people feel what they need to feel. And being a part of that entire process it's kind of like my family, my parents are farmers, and they have a pretty big cow operation that they do. And sometimes they buy calves and then they have a herd that they have bred themselves. And just observing my dad, he gives so much more care to the calves that he births himself versus the ones that he purchases. And I think that's the same idea for me, where when I'm a part of something from inception, from conception, it just means more to me. It's a deeper resonance than if I'm just like, okay, you want me to sing this song? Cool, I'm going to go up there and sing this song. That was fun. Let me go home now. So yeah.
And I can totally understand that. Like with a performance, you're bringing some of your voice, but not all of your voice to whatever this is. Whereas if you're writing it, this is entirely you, and you're trying to convey a message through other people. Man, so instead of just your portion of the performance being able to sway people, the entirety of the performance now becomes this vehicle for you to tell the world something, which I think, man, that's kind of heavy. Like, that's awesome.
It's heavy, but I think not, and I don't want to make it. I don't think that I am wiser than anyone or more whatever, or better than anybody else or anything like that. But I think that it is a both a heavy burden, but also a huge blessing to be able to be in a position where you can share a message or, inform someone of something that maybe they weren't privy to before through creative outlets. And, not everybody gets that opportunity. So when I have that opportunity, I feel honored and I take it very seriously because it's very important. And, especially the way that our world is now, we're swayed to and fro so often by whatever we see in front of us in entertainment vehicles and creative vehicles. And I think that that's been the way of things throughout human history is creativity is how people are informed or how people are shown how to feel about a certain thing. Whether that's manipulative or not is neither here nor there. But I think it's an important medium.
That's cool. So I had a couple of thoughts in there. There's what I could tell you're trying to be humble, but nothing you're saying is coming off as like you're trying to be better than anybody else. I heard you say that. But I was also thinking your life, your experiences, and the story you're trying to tell, nobody knows it better than you, right? So there's no ego associated with that. Nobody else is Mykell, right? Nobody else lived your life, and the stories you're telling, you're the most qualified person in the whole world to do that, man. So I totally see where you're coming from on all this stuff. And when you were talking about being very serious, you take it very serious. So what kind of a director are you? I'm just trying to wonder, are you cracking the whip on people, or are you more kind of soft? And you said the word manipulate, and I think maybe I tend to do that. Are you nudging people gently in various ways?
Yeah. So, I've been on both sides of things because I did a show that is, I don't even know if it's aired yet or nothing, but like it was a docuseries type thing. And the entire time I could tell that the producers were trying to produce me. Like, we need you to say this, or we need you to do that. And I was like, and I kind of got irritated by it towards the end but then like I understood what they were trying to do. And that's what I mean by like trying to kind of move people beyond from who they are to like what you need them to be. And I see that a lot, and I kind of get frustrated with it. But when I'm talking about just the sheer power of media and, just disseminating information in facts as it is, I think that that's what's so important. And when I'm in the producer kind of world, I don't want to say that I would crack the whip, but I do make sure that I remind people it's what we're doing is important. I think a lot of times in my industry, we're just trying to make money, or we're just trying to get a show done or whatever, and no one's ever thinking this is crucial or this is important. We're just trying to get paid, and that's unfortunate. I hope that in my life and in my career, I can exclusively work on things that I care about. But I know that, mortgages and bills and things like that
That's right.
come. So you can't always just like be in the sparkly parts of life. But but that's my hope and my ambition. And so when I'm working on my own things, I am always reminding people that I'm working with why we're doing what we're doing. That there is a deeper meaning other than we just like cameras and we just like lights and we just like acting and music. Like, we like these things. Yeah, we do. We love them. But, you know, we're trying to convey a message, or we're trying to tell a story that hopefully will resonate with people where they need it to resonate.
Mm. So most of the stuff that you write or produce, are you really trying to convey a message or an emotion? Or, I mean, like, are you trying to teach people something? Or do you do it sometimes just, here's like a fun, crazy story, come along for the ride with me? It's like, is there a focus on your work?
I like to think that there is a focus on my work. What I tell people all the time is, what I believe my purpose in life is to cultivate empathy. And so, because I think that empathy is something that is lacking a lot in our world. And so if I can tell a story in a way that brings you into the shoes of someone that you're not like, then I believe that there's some empathy that is cultivated in your heart that maybe wasn't there before. And so even if it's just a silly little story, I think that there's a way to thread the cultivation of empathy in that as well. I wrote and produced a web series that we did 2 seasons, and it was just a silly kind of like story about roommates, but you know, the characters themselves allowed you to look into the lives of people that maybe you're not around very often, whether it's minorities or LGBTQ, or, you know, and them just being themselves, not being caricatures of those stereotypes, but just kind of, oh, this person is, you know, gay, but also just wanting to be loved like everyone else. Let's see what that looks like in their life. And, you know, and then we did it in a very fun, kind of jovial way. And I think that's what I try and do with my work.
That was 202. Is that what that series was called?
Yeah, that's the series called 202. We got a couple of seasons out of it.
Yeah, I told you I was stalking you ahead of time. Yeah. So, so each episode, were you really like focusing on a different specific message? Or I'm always curious about the creative process. Like, did you plan out, at some point I want to hit this note, and this note, or was it a little bit more freeform and just kind of followed the story?
The way that I write, and this may be more than you're asking, but the way that I tend to write or when I'm writing scripts is, before I even put pen to paper, I spend a lot of time with the characters so that they tell me what their stories are. And then there's a more organic flow to what I write, because I can be like, oh, I want to create this character so that I can say this and so that I can do that. But really, you know, to kind of hang out with the characters and get to know them, and then say, well, what is it what's your story? What are you trying to do? And that's kind of where I go when I write. Now, obviously, there are undertones, like I said, that I want to always keep in any of my work, which is, you know, empathy, for one, and that's easy to do when I'm doing things that are very character driven. So if you have an interesting character or two and you put them in a room, you can cultivate empathy.
That's cool. So I find this interesting, the concept of cultivating empathy. So when I was digging around, so I'm going to go back in time a little bit. Sometimes I like to go all the way to the beginning and then work my way forward, and then sometimes it's very staccato. This seems like it's going to be a staccato one, man. But made me think of when you were in, I think it's called the UB Sing online competition, and like
Oh, Yobi.
Yobi
Yeah.
Singh. All right. Yobi
Yeah.
Singh.
Yobi.
See,
Yeah.
I'm just reading everything. Like, I'm not hearing people say it, so I'm just mispronouncing everything. But that was like back in 2011, and so I was digging around, and I saw that you had gave a quote to I'm not sure which publication it was, but in there you said, I'm going to quote you here: "If I had to narrow my life down to one goal, it would be to make a lasting impression on the world through my contributions, whether that be through writing, singing, or service." And I love that that was 10 years ago, and that was your philosophy. And what I love to see is that your philosophy has changed a bit to cultivating empathy, because we are humans, and if you are the same person today that you were 10 years ago, you're doing it wrong, man. And so I love to see growth in people. But I think, do you think you're still, I personally, everything you've done that I've seen and just listening to you talk, I think you're still chasing that same central message. You maybe have just focused in on a piece of it a little bit. What do you think?
I agree. I definitely was a different person 10 years ago than I am today. And, and I think that it's mostly good, good changes, good growth and evolution. But I do think that there's more focus. When I was doing Yobi 10 years ago, I was very much green and young and naive and just very idealistic. And I think that I still have a lot of idealism in me. But was very, I just want to change the world. And that grandiose idea or ideal is still there, but I think I realized, but to do that, you need to focus on who you are and how you specifically can affect change in the world around you. And that's kind of where my, I guess, more focused philosophies have been birthed from.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, I've talked to a lot of people, and I've managed a lot of people over time and mentored, and you see people that they have, like, I want to do something, but they're not taking any steps to affect change, right? To get towards that goal. And until you do that, you're just hoping, you're just wishing, and that is something that you didn't do, because you packed your bags and you moved all the way from Georgia to LA to chase the dream. And if that's not taking action to move towards your goals, I'm pretty sure I have no concept of what it is. So that's awesome.
Yeah. It was that Yobi time in my life was very much a page turner for me. I was still in Georgia when I got that gig, and I was like, okay, I'm going to use this money to move to Los Angeles. That's what I'm going to do, I think. And I went back and forth or whatever, but I was tired of just kind of wishing and like dreaming about doing something, and I just wanted to, it was the kick in the pants I needed to put some action to my words. And it also kind of was kind of my entryway into, this can actually be a thing. Like, I could actually do this. I had never seen anyone do it before. And so here I was on this production, and I was like, wow, this is a real production. There's cameras and lights and people and and scripts and all this stuff. And they want they want little old me to be, a part of it. That's really cool.
So at any point, did you think I can't do this, or this is scary? Or were you just, 100%?
I feel like if anyone who says that they don't think that from time to time, I think they're a liar. Even now, like 10 years in, I still am like, I don't know if this will work, or I don't know how to get from point A to point B, but I'm just going to put one foot in front of the other. Like, that's kind of where I live my life most of the time on that thread where I'm like, I'm just gonna put one, and it served me well, over the course of the last 10 years. Putting one foot in the front of the other has served me very well. If I'm honest, most of the things that I've experienced and the things that I've accomplished have been a result of just putting one foot in front of the other. I'm not great at planning things so far out and then accomplishing everything that I plan, but I am great at perseverance and walking. And so that's what I do.
I sometimes like to have a loose outline of what I'm going to do, but I never want to know the details because that removes all of the fun. I like to
right.
figure
Like
it out as
when
I go.
Some days there are some points in my life, all I know is that I'm here. Like that's literally all I know. And that even when I got the call to go and interview with RuPaul 3 years ago, I literally was sitting on my couch and I didn't know what the day was going to be. Like I was like, I'm here. That's about all I have. And my phone rang, and then the next 3 years of my life were planned.
I bet that's a story. Let's save that one for a minute, man. Take me back to you as a baby in Georgia. What was it like? Your parents were together, right?
No. My my mom was a 19. My mom had me when she was 19. She was in college, and her and my biological dad, they split up shortly after I was born. And so a lot of my childhood was my mom and my grandparents. My grandparents are very integral in my early years. And then when I was 10 or 11, my mom met and married my now stepfather, who I call him my dad because he's been in my life for the last 20 years. So, yeah,
Do you still remember the before your stepdad and after? Was that kind of?
Absolutely.
I'm just curious. Like, if you're 10 or 11, were you pretty skeptical about this guy or what?
Absolutely. He could tell you some stories because he just kind of came out of nowhere. And because my mom was very much like, I'm focused on my kids. I'm not dating. I'm not, and she was very vocal about it. So I was like, cool. My mom, she was a teacher at the school I went to. Like, we had our life, like it was very, very seamless, very uncomplicated. And then this guy comes out of nowhere, and he was the brother of one of my mom's colleagues. And I was like, well, who is he? And then he started showing up to things and like coming to my grandparents' house. And I was like, who is he? And then my mom got pregnant with my youngest sister. And I was like, okay, hold up. What do you mean? What are you talking about? And like, she sat me and my other sister down to like tell us that she was pregnant, and she told us. And then my stepdad comes into the room as she's telling us, and I look at him and I immediately stopped talking for a month. Like I was like, I was like, I don't know I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about it. I was confused about everything. Yeah. And so I didn't talk to my parents for almost a month after that. Like legitimately, I only spoke to my friends at school and like my cousins and my sister, of course. But like whenever we got home, I didn't say anything. And they gave me my space to feel what I was feeling. But eventually they were getting frustrated, and my mom was quite angry towards the end there. And how my stepdad got me to talk. He came into the kitchen one morning. It was a Saturday morning, and I was eating cereal. And he said, "Hey, you want to go fishing?" And I was like, "Yeah." and so like I was done not talking at that point, and because I loved fishing as a kid. And so that became our thing. And I slowly got more comfortable with him being in our lives from then on. And now he's like I said, my dad, and he raised me. I always say that he came at the right time in my life, because about to go through puberty and that whole time in life where I feel like it was very important for me to have a man of values and standards, to be someone that I can look to and ask questions about things. So yeah, he's my dad.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm curious, like right now I'm going through this thing with my oldest. He's like 15 and he doesn't want to tell me nothing. And anything I say is the furthest thing from the truth that he has ever heard. It's crazy. Did you go through that?
I absolutely did. I was one of those like know-it-all kids that I would get angry when people would try and tell me something different than what I thought I knew, which caused some turmoil in my household for sure. But I think my parents did such a good job giving me space to feel my feelings, and then know that I could come to them when I maybe painted myself into a corner, or I veered off the road and I don't know how to get back on it. I knew that they were there. Or when I was experiencing something that was new to me that I didn't have any kind of reference for, I could go to them and say, "Oh, this happened." Like I remember when I was probably like 13 or 14, and I had a classmate just die all of a sudden. And I didn't know how to handle it. As I had never experienced death at that point. And I was like, I don't know how to deal with my emotions. And then of course there's hormones on top of all that. It was a whole lot of things. Yeah. And so I was like, I knew my parents were right there, so that I could go, and if I needed to cry or I needed to ask questions, I knew that they were there to go do that with. And in the long run, I think them giving me that kind of space has informed our relationship today, where I'm an adult and I have my own life, but I know that they're there. And I know that if I find myself in a pickle, or if I find myself with questions about, I just bought a house for the first time homeowner, and there's so many questions that I have. And so I'm calling them all the time. Like, so what do I need to do? So do I need to call my insurance company for this? Do I need to, those kinds of questions? I think, I feel like because of how they raised me, I feel comfortable in our relationship today.
It sounds like, from the way you describe it, sounds like they had a lot of emotional intelligence, to be able to give you space and stuff like that. Do you think that's pretty accurate, or do they have a lot of work to do?
No, I think for sure my mother has a lot of emotional intelligence. And being that she had me at 19 and was a single mother, and there was a lot that she was having to figure out on the go, as she was dealing with her, because when you're 19, 20, 21, you still are like, I don't know any I don't know up from down. And so there because of that, my mom and I have a very unique friendship within our mother-son relationship, because even from a young age, she was very, very open in our communication, because I knew, you don't understand, and it's okay. And as an 8-year-old, 9-year-old, there's something freeing, I think, to recognize that early. My mom doesn't have it all figured out, but she has my best interest. And that's enough for me to trust her wholeheartedly. And that, but I don't expect her to know everything, or I don't expect her to be perfect. because, she was a kid when she had me, and she's still growing up, and I can tell. And so we have very open conversations about those things. And there are people who probably would disagree with the level of openness that sometimes my mom and I had, but I don't think that it robbed me of my childhood. I actually think that I had a longer childhood than most people that I know today. So I think there was a very, very well balanced parent-friend relationship that somehow they were able to pull off.
Do you think your dad looked a lot to your mom for like cues on how do I react here? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. He did, and now it's like second nature to him, which is amazing to see. And there's still times where I get shocked. Like I'm like, oh, the level of emotional intelligence that you have in this situation, where did this come from? Like my sisters will have a crisis and he responds in a way that I would have never expected him to respond 20 years ago. And I'm just very nothing ruffles his feathers. And he just is very like, I'm just going to jump in and be what I need to be in this case, in this situation or that situation or this person's life or that person's life or not. But there was a point in time where he didn't know what to do. Because he came in and I was prepubescent and my sister was 8 years old, and we were people already that he now had to kind of involve himself in, and my mom was definitely giving him advice and cues and all the things that he needs to kind of navigate relationships with me and my sister. But he did it. He does it well.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
I grew up with a single mom
too. And I think part of that is they need you to be more independent. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not usually an option. And so I don't feel like I got robbed of being a kid either. It's just, you got responsibilities now. You know that most kids, I say most kids,
you have responsibilities.
Like 50% of kids now have divorced parents. So it's probably not as common as it used to be. It's pretty common nowadays.
Right.
So, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
All right. So,
I definitely think that
go ahead.
That's true.
Yeah.
No, I was just saying, I agree with you. For
sure. So you are obviously, from the list of things you've done, man, all of your accolades, you're a performer. Where did that performative nature come from? Were you always were you a class clown? What were you doing? Were you always singing, dancing? I mean, what were you doing? How'd that come out?
No. Funny enough, so like my mom was a vocal major in college.
Okay.
And my biological dad was a music major. And so I think music has always been around me. But I was terrified of performing in front of people for years. Now when I was a kid, like my parents bought me like this microphone and amp, and I would just be in my room and make up songs and sing into the microphone, or like imagine myself performing in front of a crowd or whatever. But I couldn't do it in real life. In fact, on Easter's, my grandmother would have I have 25 cousins, and she would have all 25 of us come to her church. Wow. And like each one of us would have to do an Easter poem or speech, and when I was like 5 or 6, my family realized that I could sing. And so my grandmother would make me sing on Easter, and I would just stand there like a deer in headlights, and I was petrified. And so like I had a cousin who was around my age, and so they started having him stand up there next to me to make me feel more comfortable to sing. And so that would be the only time I would sing, will be on Easter, and I would have to have my cousin stand next to me to do it.
Do you still call him out if you got a big gig to do?
I should, but I think that he did. He had his purpose when I was 6 and 7 and 8, to kind of get my gears turning. But now, and then I think when I was in middle school, I did a talent show, and I was like, okay, maybe I could do this with, I'm a little bit more comfortable now. And so it kind of launched from there. I started doing, my aunt was like my unofficial manager, and she would book me at these like nightclub gigs at 13 because she knew a lot of radio VJs in Atlanta, and so she would just like get me these gigs, and I was like this 13-year-old kid at 11 o'clock at night in this club on the weekend.
What kind of stuff were you singing at 13 in a club?
I was singing like R&B songs that I should not have been singing. songs I didn't understand for sure.
Okay.
But I was doing it because it was fun, and then I started doing musical theater, and it just kind of developed from there.
Yeah. So I saw, weren't you in like Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat?
Yes.
You got Joseph, right?
That was the show that made me realize that I maybe could try this for real. Because I had not been performing much prior to that. Like, I actually stopped doing, only time I sang was in church before that. Like, I was just kind of like singing in the church worship team or whatever. And what I realized is when I would sing at church, it was a performance in my mind and not like worship or anything like that. So I stopped singing in church because I was like, I feel bad that this is not. And to be honest, this is how I figured it out. We were singing a song in church, and there was a drum beat to it that was very like, it seemed like no one else heard it, but I could hear it. And so my body inadvertently did like a little sexy body roll. And I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore.
They're gonna think you're possessed over there.
And I was like, I can't perform I can't sing in church because this is clearly a performance for me and not like worship or like. And so I stopped singing in church and started to figure out, well, how do I scratch this itch? And so a friend of mine and I started writing music together and performing at coffee houses. And then this audition for Joseph came, and I was like, well, let me audition for that. Like, I just need to be on stage, clearly. Yeah. And then I got the lead in that musical, and we did that show for like 2 or 3 months, and everybody, like, the response was so wild that I was like, wait, maybe I can take this a step further. And so that's how I ended up in doing the Yobi thing, was like, I put a song out on YouTube or something, and they called me and we're like, we love this song, we want to do this. In fact, we want you to come and be on the show, and we also want to change the name of the show to the name of your song and put the song as the theme song of the show. And I was like, wait, really? Okay.
Oh, little old me? Really?
Yeah, like I was like, oh, cool. And so, they flew me to Detroit, and we filmed this show with Mike the Situation was the star of it. And that was an experience. But it was because of Joseph that I was like, oh, Joseph in the show, I was like, okay, maybe I should try this. Maybe I should give this a real go at it. So, yeah.
So the Joseph thing came along and you said yes. You said, I'm going to try this thing. And then the Yobi Singh thing came along and you said yes. And you just went and did it. I think that definitely goes with your theme of one foot in front of the other. Just something comes along
100.
and say, yes, I'm just going to roll this. We'll see where it goes. And along the way, like you're talking about performing, writing music, performing in coffee houses and stuff, just one foot in front of the other. I love that. It's just, and it sounds like you've never thought to yourself, this isn't something I can't do. You're just like, yeah, I'm just going to do this thing and go.
Right. And I definitely think, I don't think that I've ever thought that I couldn't do it. I just didn't know how things would happen. Has really always been the question that maybe plagued me, was not, oh, this is impossible. I just don't know how. And I'm someone who naturally wants to know how. Naturally, I want to know, like, okay, how does this work? Or how is this going to happen? Like, I don't like to be surprised a whole lot, which is ironic because all of my life is mostly just a bunch of surprises threaded together. And so it's very, it's a cosmic joke, I guess. But,
so you went to, I'm looking at Valdosta? Is that how you say that?
Valdosta
State. And so you went to college, you did philosophy and religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. What was that like? What was college life like for you?
I had a very unique college experience in that.
You had a lot of unique experiences. Yeah.
I didn't want to go to college because I was performing. I was doing a lot of performing by the time I graduated high school. And I told my mom, I'm not going to college. I'm just going to perform. And she was like, hey, can you just go for a semester just to experience it? Go and live in the dorms and like just experience it. So I was like, fine. And I went to Valdosta because it was the furthest away from home without leaving Georgia, so I could get the scholarship the in-state scholarship and everything. It's like right on the border of Georgia and Florida. So I was like, ooh, Florida, I can go to the beach, blah, blah. And then I went to Valdosta, and within the first semester, this guy showed up at my dorm room and started like talking about the Bible, and it just really intrigued me. And so I like started going to this Bible study, and then my entire college experience ended up being about that. Like I ended up becoming a pastor for a few years after I graduated, which is why I majored in philosophy and religious studies, was because I was like, well, I'm going to go to be a pastor. And so I was a college pastor and I was going to go to seminary, but then I realized that I wanted to pursue entertainment. So my life took a sharp turn there. So yeah, it was, I enjoyed my time in college. I grew a lot as a person, and developed a lot of really great relationships. It's where I met my now husband. We met in a Bible study. Yeah, like I don't regret a moment of time in college. It's why I got to go to Thailand for 3 different summers and did a lot of really cool things.
That's cool. Sounds like it was pretty formative.
Yeah, it was definitely a formative time in my life. Built a lot of really strong foundations about who I wanted to be, who I thought I was, what I imagined the world to be, and things like that.
Do you encourage people to go to college nowadays?
I encourage people to do something out of high school that will cause them to learn who they are. If it's the military, if it's backpacking through Europe, but for a lot of people, it is college. Now, I think the reason why I say whatever just kind of helps you develop who you are is because my understanding of college is a lot different than it was then. Because, everyone's like, you got to go to college to get a degree so you can get a job, blah, blah, blah. But like, obviously that dichotomy has changed a lot.
A whole lot.
So I don't think that you need to go to college to succeed in life, but I think that everyone should experience living in a dorm. I think that I had some of the best times just living in a dorm with a bunch of other people and, people from all walks of life. Like if you can put yourself in a position where you're meeting people that are not from where you're from and don't think like you think and aren't raised like you're raised, do it.
Yeah.
That's what
I like the idea of being surrounded by strangers, because I know some kids they'll go to college, but they'll end up getting with a whole bunch of people that they went to high school with and like staying with them. It's like, I think that's the wrong way of doing it. That would be nice to have somebody there that but I think you just gotta jump in with both feet and
you gotta
surround yourself with strangers, because I learned the most that way.
And I think that most people do. It's just scary, and so we don't do it.
Yeah, but you do it enough, and it's, what is it like? It's outside your comfort zone, but you do it enough, and your comfort zone gets big enough to encompass that as well, right?
Absolutely.
I love it. So we have graduated college. You were a pastor for a little while. Well, that's something that didn't come up in my research. I think that's interesting. But I could tell. Yeah, I could tell that religion is still a big part of your life, and like it seems like it had wound its way through most of the stuff that I'd found about you. So that doesn't surprise me too much.
Yeah, it's definitely a very pertinent thread in who I am, because it was such a big part of my foundation. It's definitely my relationship with religion and faith has definitely evolved over the course of the last 10 years or so. But it's still very important. And I've figured out how to put it in a place in my life where it's not overwhelming everything else. Like what I will say about my time in college is, and when I was a pastor, what I kept seeing in people and other people around me was that they weren't able to experience life fully because everything had to fit in this box. And I was like specifically every time I would go to Thailand, the people who I would go with had to experience Thailand within this tiny box. And I was like, but we're in freaking Asia, in this country that's thousands of years old. Like there's more here than just, we have to teach them English so that we can talk about Jesus. Like I think that they have as more to teach me than I have to teach them. So let me go. And I was always the one who would just go off and meet random people and like form relationships and I was the one that was being taken to people's homes and being cooked meals by their grandmother. And like, because that's what I realized life was. It was more than just, what do I have to offer? But what is being extended to me as well.
Yeah, it boggles me whenever I see people put artificial limitations on themselves, right? Purely invented by themselves. It's like, why would you, especially in a situation like that, there's like, it is just opportunity after opportunity. It's just such an amazing experience. And yet I won't let myself fully experience it. I won't let myself fully enjoy it because of XYZ. And that stuff usually never rings that true to me. And it just,
It
I feel
doesn't.
sad for them, honestly.
I do too, and I think that it's unfortunate because you're left unchanged. And when you enter into an experience that is meant to change you, and then you aren't changed, that says a lot about how you're going through life. And I saw it happen all the time, and I was like, why are you not? I know maybe I'm just way more sensitive to things, but I don't understand how you can be so narrow-minded about the world, having just spent 3 months in Thailand. Like, how I don't know how you do that. But I saw it happen over and over again.
Mm. Yeah, and the first time you see it, you're like, well, maybe that's a fluke. But then you realize, oh, it's there's so many things here. So it's like,
Yeah.
My wife, really fast. My wife went to the hospital after our second son was born. She almost didn't come out. So like everything changed for me, like my perspective on things. And to me, I learned the only thing that matters to me are people, and obviously food. Right? We already talked about that. Food is important too. And so just, I don't know, things that used to seem so important to me didn't anymore. And I would see all these people walking around me, and somehow they didn't see what I saw. Like, I just don't understand it. They were like a bunch of zombies just trudging through the same daily I felt like Neo in the Matrix, and I had woken up, and how am I the only one that can see it? And it's just, I want to bring people along on this journey, but some people, it's like so part of their DNA that they have to follow in this giant rut that they've dug in the ground. They just have to go in this circle all the time. That doesn't matter what you say or do, they're never going to break out of that. And whenever I find somebody like you that is like fully embracing life, man, it makes me feel alive. You know what I mean?
And that's what I was just about to say. I was like, I love connecting with people like you who understand or have been able to realize what life is actually about, and not, be so narrow focused on the things that don't matter at all. Like, most of the stuff isn't real, and yet we put so much weight on the things that I'm like, that's not even real. Like, that literally popped up in our vernacular 10 years ago. Like, why are you putting so much weight on it? or like, why are you focus your entire life on this thing that like doesn't hold up in water? So like, what, I don't know. I get sad when I am constantly surrounded by that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's draining. And the idea you said, left unchanged, I circled that several times here, because that is exactly what I do every time I talk to somebody like you. Like, this is the whole reason I started this podcast, is because it changes me as a human, like just a human being every single time I talk to somebody. And the things I love the most is when you say something that is contrary to what I used to believe to be true. And guess what? I can take in new information, and I can change the way I think and the way I feel, and I will be different. And it is, how is that such a foreign concept that you,
how
it blows me away.
Like, how, and like coming from a super conservative religious Southern background, and living in Los Angeles, being married to a man, and all of these things. And so I hear from people back from my college years and things like that are like, I don't understand how you got to this point, or I don't understand how you could think this way. And I'm like, well, because I'm a person who changes, and as my life progresses and as I experience new things, my thoughts shift and my opinions change. And that's part of being human. Like, that's part of to think this is, the people that are from my time in college and as a pastor, for them to come to me, the things that we thought were right and true 15 years ago, for you to think that they're still true makes me think, well, you just haven't branched out of the bubble that we created back then. Like, how are you still that same person with those same ideals when the world has shown, like, has given so much evidence that things are not always black and white, or things are not always like, it would be absurd of me to think that what I believed at 19 fits in my life today. Like, because I was 19, like, who knows anything at 19? But to hold on to the things that I think I know from as a 19-year-old, as a 30-year-old, is absurd. And yet I see people do it all the time, and I'm like, oh, how do you do that unless, like I said, you keep yourself in that bubble that you create to reinforce that instead of learning new things?
Yeah. It's just fear that keeps them there, right? They're afraid of changing, but that's visceral and that's human, and
right.
I can understand that. Doesn't mean you have to stay that way. I remember when I was a little kid, my sister declared that New Kids on the Block was the best band that would ever exist. And I think history has shown that to be false, right? So you've got, you know what I mean? It's like, you got to change, right? You got to evolve. And I used to be afraid of change. I mean, everybody's heard the phrase, the only constant is change, right? And I knew that logically it made sense that I would have to embrace that at some point, but it took me, 35 years of being on this planet before I really figured that out. And change and I know surprise may not be your favorite part, but like being surprised by people is one of my favorite things.
Being surprised by people is I'm all for that. I like people proving me wrong or surprising me in certain ways. It's when life is like, haha, and I'm like, wait, what?
Gotcha.
What?
Oh man. All right. So we've made it through college. We've made it out of I guess we've narrowly avoided seminary school.
Yeah.
Now we're in LA, and you are singing, you're doing web series, all that crazy stuff. And then at some point you said you were sitting on your couch and you get a phone call for an interview. Is that how that came about?
That's how it came about. I literally was sitting on my couch. It was one of those days where I was like, I don't really know what I'm going to do today. I don't know what today's going to bring, which can sometimes be exciting and sometimes be depressing.
Those are the days where I don't do anything. So
right. I mean, I was sitting on the couch because I was like, I mean, I went to the gym, so like, what else is there to do? But and I get a phone call, and they were like, "Hey, you kind of look like RuPaul. Like, you have the same skin tone, and you guys are the same height. Would you want to come and interview at Warner Brothers Studios to be his double?" And I was like, I mean, yeah, I'm not doing anything. So I was like, yeah. And they were like, okay, it's going to be next week. Here's the time, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, do I want to take this seriously or not? And the more I thought about it, the more I was like, to be able to work so closely with him would be the opportunity of a lifetime. So maybe I should take this seriously. So I went on this crash diet because he's super skinny, and I did the whole like, and I like destroyed my closet trying to find the perfect thing to wear because I know you like colorful suits. And I recruited my family and my friends to like do a poll on what suit to wear, and like, because I was like, okay, I really want to get this because I think it'll be really cool, and I'm not doing anything right now, and whatever. And so I went to the interview. I was at the Warner Brothers Studios a lot, and I was the first person to get there, and there was like 7 or 8 guys that were doing the interview as well, and I was the only one who wore a suit. And so we all met Ru, and we all met the producers and we took photos side by side with him. And I got called later that day saying that I'd gotten the job. And then my life for the next almost 3.5 years, I've been with him in a myriad of roles, but that's where it started as his double.
That's cool, man. Yeah. That's crazy. That's random. That's the universe calling you on the phone.
Yeah, that's I mean, like, and that's how I felt when it happened. I was like, that was very strange. Like, it almost felt like purposed. And so that's why I was like, let me take this seriously in terms of like preparation for it. So like I said, I went on this crash diet where you can only eat 3 plain baked potatoes a day, and that's it, and water. And I like lost a bunch of weight really fast, and it was very unhealthy, but I wouldn't tell anybody else to do it. But yeah, I think that my preparation for it and showing up the way that I did made an impact, because I got the job almost immediately. So, and I had never been anybody's double or stand-in or anything before, and everyone else that was interviewing had done it for years, and I was like, surely I'm not going to get this. But it worked out, and so I worked with him as his double on AJ and the Queen, the Netflix series, for that shot for like 7 months. And then after that, he brought me over to Drag Race to be his double for that. And then he needed an assistant because his old assistant left. And so I jumped over and became his assistant. And I've just learned so much from the guy. Like it definitely was a purposed meeting, a purposed call for me in my life. And it's one of those things where I'm just like, I don't know where it's going, but I know I'm supposed to be doing it right now, kind of thing. So that's where I'm at.
Well, it seems like from everything I could tell, Ru's got like a very a focused sense of what he wants, and he's very regimented and routine. Do you feel like that's kind of seeped into you a little bit? You think you've picked up on that? I think
it has, because when you have the opportunity to work with someone like him so closely, and for someone like me, the opportunity immediately, I was like, okay, I'm just going to watch him, because I had never been this close to someone this successful before. And I don't think, obviously the universe does what it wants, and people rise and fall and, all that kind of stuff. But I think that there are certain disciplines that all successful people have. And so I was like, what is his routine? What is his disciplines? Who is this man that can create this empire the way that he has? And so I've been very observant, and as a result, a lot of the things I've learned has been implemented in my own life in a lot of different ways, from, my own specific routines to just being more organized, because there's no way to maintain any kind of level of success if you're not organized. Even on a small scale, like even with your podcast, like you have to be organized in order for you to continue to do it. And that's not something that I had implemented in my life very thoroughly. Not that I was disorganized, but I was just kind of like, oh, I know where it is. It's over there somewhere. Or, but now just being more organized and making, making decisions in light of who I want to be and what I want to do versus just kind of saying yes to things. And
he says right after he said yes to doing this podcast.
No, I think that this was a great, I wanted to say yes to doing the podcast because I was like, this is a good thing. I think that I don't, for one, haven't been invited to too many podcasts recently. And so I like to talk. I like talking to new people, and I love the idea of podcasts. So, yeah.
And you're a storyteller, so you really should be on podcasts. It is so natural to hear you tell stories. And I love how, as you're ruminating, as you're telling the story, you're picking up these little interstitial pieces and you go, oh, and then this and this. I love it. That is so natural, man. You need to do more of these.
I've been playing around with the idea of starting a podcast. I just don't know how you start. I mean, I guess you just get a mic. I don't know. I've been playing with the idea. I've been toying with the idea for sure. But like when you started today, you were like, I got to record here and I got to press record, and I was like, I don't. And your mic situation, like all of your setup is like aces, and I'm like, what is all of this? I don't know how to do any of that.
Well, see, all you got to do is make one friend that knows how to do it, and they'll help you out.
Oh, there you go. You're my friend. Easy. Hi, Greg. Nice to meet you.
Done and done, man. Dude, I thought, pretend like you don't know who I am. Come on. Yeah. It's a lot easier than you think, man. I think you'll be surprised, pleasantly surprised. So, your husband is David, or am I completely crazy?
Yeah, his name is Justin.
Why did I think it was David? Justin.
I don't know.
Has he seen like the changes in you since you've started working with her?
Yeah, he says, he talks about it a lot. He was like, you're more focused, but in a good way, and then you're more sure. And no one has ever faulted me for being unsure of myself, or no one has ever called me unsure of myself. However, I think the level of surety has increased, and he notices it, and he's like, you're more willing to have conversations with people that you would be hesitant to because you think that they're too big to talk to, or you think that they are out of reach for you. And I'm like, well, I mean, RuPaul is one of the biggest stars in the world right now. And he and I just have regular conversations. And I think over the course of 3 years of doing that, you get comfortable with just about anybody else. You're like, yeah, he's a big star and everyone freaks out about him, but he's just rude. And so now I think that about everyone else. And I'm like, oh, well, let me go ask this producer this question because I need to know the answer and they have it. So I'm not going to be afraid to go talk to them because they're the producer of this big show or whatever. And I think that has been a good thing for me. And he's definitely noticed that, and just being more intentional with my time and my relationships and things like that is also something that he references a lot.
Yeah.
So.
I definitely, the thing about time, I've learned in life that I can always get more money. Maybe it's not easy, but I mean, you can always get more money. You can hire more people. You can do all these things, but you can't buy more time, right? That's the one resource that you have to be stingy with and careful.
Yeah, I agree. And that's one of the big lessons that I've learned from working with Ru is that even for someone who's super famous and successful and rich, they're still very much attached to their time and using it appropriately, because I don't care how much money you have or how many people know your name, we all have a certain amount of time allotted to us, and you can't buy any more of it, and no one's going to give you any more of it. So I think it's equally as important for every person on the planet. And when I realized that, it was a game changer for me.
So you were talking about feeling more sure of yourselves. If I had to distill that in a word, I would say confidence, right? You just have
Yes.
more confidence. And I think I've gotten somewhere in that place. So I was talking to somebody the other day and they're like, man, I saw this person in the airport and I lost my mind. I went crazy. And, and I was thinking, there's pretty much no human on the planet that would make me do that. I'm not saying, but it's, and I was trying to distill. It's like, why? I was thinking about, I was like, why is that? Like, am I some kind of psycho or something? Like, but I was thinking, it's just, I don't know. I just see people as people now.
Yeah.
They're humans just like me. They have wants and desires, and they have these complex stories that I know nothing about.
Right.
And they're just people. We all sit down on a toilet every day.
Exactly.
We all do the exact same stuff.
We do the exact same things. Yeah. And I think that being able to realize that to the degree that I have it's taking my I guess confidence to another level when it comes to engaging with the world around me, because it's not even just like famous people, or rich people or whatever. It's just like there are people that are intimidating. Just to me, like, I can be intimidated by someone who is very, very sure of themselves. And now I feel like I'm less intimidated because I understand where that confidence can come from. And I'm like, oh, you understand that we're all just people too. And so you walk through life with your head a little higher now, because you're not like, oh, I wonder if they're looking at me this way, or because everyone's trying to make sure that they're not out of sorts. So they're focused on themselves anyway. They're not paying you any mind, but we all think that everyone's watching us. And, but yeah, I definitely find myself more confident in how I engage the world. And, it's good. And I think that wherever my life takes me next, it will serve me well there.
Well, that's a cool opportunity. Ru is definitely like one of my personal heroes. Like, I've listened to his master class and stuff. And what really got me is there's a lot of similarities about our childhoods that weren't always the best. And you could tell he's done a ton of work on himself, which I absolutely respect. But more than that, he seems like he tries to build other people up. And he seems like he truly gets joy out of seeing other people succeed when he can help them do that. And like, those kinds of things just ring so true to me. Like I mean, that's why we're on this freaking planet, Right.
And I think that he is very that is a staple of his personality, because if he could if he could bring everyone along, he would. If he could, the way that he cherishes people, and it's very, like, it resonates with me, because you can tell that he's living out things that are very important to him when it comes to helping people. And you talk about his masterclass. I was there for the filming of it, taking notes, and there, like, I had a pad, and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible, because I heard some of the stuff that he was sharing, but a lot of it was like a lot more rounded in terms of him teaching the masterclass. And I was like, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. And I'm like taking these notes, because there is a wisdom to him that only comes from experiencing life and doing the work on yourself to kind of evolve as a human. And that's probably why I cherish my time with him as much as I do, because he's this realized human. And it's not because he's RuPaul the celebrity, it's because he's RuPaul the guy who does the work. And that it's beautiful to be a part of, and to be next to, and to learn from, and to be changed by.
Yeah. And you could tell down to his bones, the lessons he's learned were hard won. And it's not the kind of lesson that you would wish upon anybody else. I mean, he is stronger and better for it, but I mean, that kind of stuff, like if you ever been through that, you wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Right.
Even
Absolutely.
though it makes you so strong on the other side, some people it destroys. And it's just, I mean, geez.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
It's rough.
Yeah.
Man. But I gotta, man, you are, so if you're tall, you're is a height of RuPaul, you're going to be about 6'4", right?
I'm 6'4".
So you're 6'4", you're well-spoken, extremely well-spoken. You're very attractive. You're confident as hell. You are one dangerous individual.
I appreciate that.
I think it's whew, I talk about intimidation. I'm glad that we're doing this at such a distance. I don't know that I could handle you up close.
Oh, I appreciate that. No, I really do. That makes me feel good.
For sure, man. Well, you mentioned that you were just recently married, and when I was stalking you, I found like your wedding thing online. So I got to see pictures of you and Justin together, and you guys just look stupid together. You guys look so cute. I mean, it's
thank you.
Like I can just feel how well you guys mesh together. That's so awesome. And then the fact that you've been together for so long doesn't surprise me either.
Yeah. We've been together, you know, there was a portion of our relationship that was in secret. But
what, the part where you were a pastor?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And then like and then a few years when we moved out here, because we moved out here together, and a few years out here, we were just kind of figuring out how we feel about each other, and like, you know, that whole thing. But yeah, I think that as a result, our relationship is very seamless, and easy, which I enjoy, because we really know each other and we care about each other, and I think we have similar understandings of the world.
Easy. That is the word of the day, because when a relationship's right, it's just easy, isn't it?
It's easy. It's just easy.
Yeah.
And I that's the thing that I wanted. And whatever, you know, you think about the relationship, that the one you marry, that was always the one thing that I wanted, was for it to just be easy and like fun. Those were the two words that I always thought about growing up. I just want whoever I marry for it to be easy and fun. If you're going to do it for a long time, then it has to be, you don't want it to be complicated, and you don't want it to be boring. So this is 13-year-old me's thoughts. I don't want to be married and it's boring. So I want it to be fun. And so, yeah, I feel like I lucked out in getting those things.
I don't know, man. They say chance favors a prepared mind. So sounds like you were just ready. You were ready for the opportunity when it arrived.
I like that.
Man, I could quite literally sit here and talk to you all the rest of the day, but we're nearing the time that we had allotted, and I try and be very respectful of people's time, because I already told you that time is really important to me. But to be honest, I couldn't imagine spending it with a better person this afternoon, because like discovering you as a human was just so awesome. And so I contacted you out of nowhere, and you were kind enough to say yes, and I really appreciate that, because I get so many no's that it's just it's awesome when it really comes together. Not only is it a yes, but man, I would have paid you to do this. You didn't know that ahead of time, but this was so enjoyable, man. I love it. Like, it was so.
Well, I thank you, and I thank you for reaching out and for giving me the opportunity. I love talking to people. I love sharing stories, and this was great. You're a great host. And,
feed that ego. Yeah.
We're doing it for each other, so it's fine.
Oh man. So if folks, I guess listening to this out on the internet, whatever, want to get a hold of you, like what's your favorite way for people to interact with you, like Instagram or LinkedIn or website or anything?
I mean, link my LinkedIn, my Instagram. It's both official Mykell. Like, you can all of my social medias are official Mykell. So official Mykell. You can find me all over the internet.
Well, Mykell, thank you so much for talking to me today. And I can definitely tell you that you did not leave me unchanged. And for that, I am thankful. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Now I'm going to hit stop on all of the recording things, which is not really that many things.